everybody. I haven't made a video in a while, but I was gonna make this, or I did make this cool little skull pad. That's what I'm calling it, the skull pad. And it's a little macro pad, with a joystick as well. I wanted to do this because I have my old one, and it works well for games and stuff, but it doesn't really have the features that I need. Like, I mean, obviously, it's only really a gamepad and not a macro pad. But this one, I'm using QMK, and I figured out how to add a joystick, which did take me some time. But anyway, this is just me in the form workspace designing it, and it's my first time designing with the form tool in Fusion 360, so it's not the best, and this design is sort of just what happened before I printed it, it broke, and I had to redesign it, but it's all pretty much the same. It was cool trying to design in the form workspace for the first time. There's a lot of things that I need to learn, but for my first attempt, it did turn out pretty well. The parts that I'm using for this build, are I bought this cheap little WisdPi Tiny RP2040, which is it's pretty good for what I need it to do. I also got this cheap little joystick to test out, but I am having a bit of a problem with it not inputting correctly. Like, half of the joystick works, but then the other half doesn't. So it's not really totally functional at the moment, but this is sort of just like a draft version, like sort of getting the idea of how this QMK firmware works. And it's pretty good, but I just need to sort out this joystick problem because that's kind of the whole reason I made this thing. I'll put the link to the source that I used to figure out how to actually add the joystick, because originally I didn't think it was possible, and it was kind of hard finding like information on the subject, but I did end up finding a good source. So I'll put that in the description if you want to check that out and try to make one for yourself. I'll also put a link to the components that I used, and also one little final plug is my Etsy store, Rad Skull Industries. I design and 3D print stuff. If you have any custom requests, I can do that as well. So you can support me just by heading over there. I'll put a link in the description. And yep, let's get on with the build. What I've done with the pins is I've just pushed them all to one side. So this will go in here and get soldered onto the board. And then it will just, this little bottom plate has this ledge here where the bottom of that pin row there will just sit, and it'll all just fit nicely together, and I'll just glue it down there. I set these inserts in, they went pretty well. So now I'm going to put this joystick in. All you have to do is clip a little bit of the excess for the pins on the back of the circuit board here. Okay, so I had to redesign it. Well, I mean, I didn't have to redesign it, but I had to reprint it because the old one, as I was putting it together, started to fall apart. But I took the opportunity to give it a little bit of a makeover, so now the switches should be, well, they are lowered a bit more, which might improve the feel and ergonomics, but I think it looks good. And it was definitely, I think, a necessary change. But now I've test fit it, the joystick does seem to be a lot better now because I've increased the diameter of this hole here. I might just need to go over that with like a deburring tool or something, just to get rid of the rough edges. And yeah, I'll get to putting the heat set inserts in and soldering up the switches. Okay, now I'm putting in the inserts. I hot glued them all up, hot glued all the switches in, and now they should be good to go. They won't go anywhere, hopefully. And the peoples in the videos tell you to shorten the red side, the side where the current flows through first. So I'll just trim these and use those pins as my wire, because I ain't got none that will work. Doesn't really work either. Oops. Maybe I can like push this into here and lift that up, and I can do the same for these ones. Yeah, I might just use as many of these as I can and just bridge them together sort of like that. This one's not long enough. I don't think any of them will be long enough actually. Oh my goodness. Come on. Go in there. And there. Yes, that one just reaches. That's a lot better. Yeah, I think I'll just try to use as many of those as I can. So those are my columns. Now I don't need to put any on these because these are two separate columns. Even though I guess I could make this its own column. Okay, that's a row, a 0, 0 pin. Maybe I'll just put it here. I'll bend it back this way. Okay, I have wired up the entire matrix now. And now I'm just gonna, I got these little connectors here that I scavenged from some servo motors. And I'm gonna use these to connect to the Tiny RP2040. But yeah, that's why I pushed those pins up all the way, so I can just stick those on, and it'll make it so if I ever need to change the board, it'll be a lot easier to just unplug it, switch the board if because right now I got the code and this joystick doesn't seem to be working right, but in the future when I decide to fix that, I'll just take it apart, fix whatever needs to be fixed, and put these connectors back on. Simple as that. Okay, I got my 4 rows and my 5 columns. So I'm gonna need to rewrite the QMK firmware. That's what that looks like. That's pretty good. No heat shrink, I just bended up these legs here so they just avoid it. And we should be good to go. Okay, I'll just run through the code real quickly. It's not too hard to understand after I figured out how to do it all. But basically that's just a bunch of the normal stuff. But setting up the pins, we've got 5 columns and we've got 4 rows. My row 4 is set to the GP5 pin because just because of the JST connector. And then down here, the first 2 rows should have 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then this one. And then we just change this to 4 and 4. And we'll do the same for, actually no, row 3 has 4 pins, or 4 columns, and row 4 only has 3. So that is all good. In the this is just how you set up the joystick. You in the config.h you add these 2 lines. I'm not sure about how I add the joystick button, but I don't know if I really need to. In the rules.mk, this is just where you add these 2 lines, enabling the joystick and the type of driver. So analog means it can go in all directions, and digital, just forward, back, left and right. The key map, this is how I have it, or had it set up before. And I think it's all still pretty good. Technically, this one is now a part of this. So that's the first 5 pins, first 5 columns, the second 5. So that's row 1, row 2. Row 3 has 4 columns, and then row 4 has 3 columns. And that's all looking pretty good. I might just change these here. This one here, the key codes, this is where, these are just where you input like one of these lines for whatever switch it is. So I just have most of them set up as function keys, just because I don't really know what else to do. I have the 2 buttons on the side. You got up and down arrow, and then you got just other function and print screen. I added a print screen because I do play Star Citizen quite a bit, and you know, I'm hoping that I don't have to open up Paint and paste my screenshot in there to save it. So hopefully this will fix that problem for me, but I might just change these to something else. To compile the firmware, just open QMK MSys and you put this line of code in. QMK compile hyphen KB, then your keyboard's name. Mine's just my name underscore keyboard, and then hyphen KM, and then default. And then that should compile the firmware. Okay, now that it's done, it says here that it put it in the QMK firmware folder. So that's just for me, and users QMK firmware, and then here it is. Now to put this on your RP2040 board, make sure you don't close up your device before you do this bit, because when you plug the board in, you need to be holding the reset select button, and I'll show you in a second once I get this open. While holding the reset select button on your RP2040 board, you want to plug in the USB, and this folder will pop up. And now to flash the firmware, you just copy the UF2 file and you paste it in here, and it should just automatically do that. And before I close this entire thing up, I'm just going to open up keyboard tester, see if there's one online here. Not that one. Let's test this. Does it work? Ah, yeah, it kind of helps to have it plugged in. Now let's see if it works. That's my left shift. That's my tab. That's my print screen. that's working. F1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. F12 is print screen. Anyway, and then the side buttons up and down. That's good. So anyway, I'll show you what it looks like. Here it is. It's all put together now, it's all working. Aside from the minor issue with the joystick, I think it works pretty well as a normal macro pad. My keyboard is just a small little 60%, and adding these extra function buttons will make my workflow a lot easier. And especially in my games, Star Citizen, I definitely need these function keys to make things a little quicker. But yeah, it's good. I'll someday figure out what's going on with the joystick, and if you have any ideas, then maybe you can help me out. But thank you. Thanks for watching. I hope this was kind of helpful. It was for me, and it was fun. Bye bye.